Okay, Joy Squads, go ahead and introduce the chief, please.
I'm pleased to introduce to you Police Chief Marc Yamada, our guest speaker this evening. Chief Yamada has a long history with Montgomery County and with our police department. He was born and raised in Wheaton, attended our public schools, and earned a Bachelor of Science in Business Management and Marketing from Frostburg State. After a year of graduate study, he joined our police department, where he has been ever since, over those years serving in a number of roles and receiving a number of awards. He knows our county well. This more than 35-year veteran of our police department became our chief of police on July 1st of last year. Please welcome our chief, Marc Yamada.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know this is the first time I have spoken to this particular group, but I know you all focus on community well-being, among other things, and that's actually appropriate since that's a priority for us for me as police chief and for us as a police department, is trying to provide the services that you all want, that you deserve, and in the highest quality that we can possibly do that. So I appreciate the introduction. As she said, I am Marc Yamada. I've been your chief of police since July 1st of last year, and I mean that honestly when I say I've been your chief. This is not, I didn't enter in this job trying to make it Marc Yamada's police department. This is our police department, and it's best served from a community standpoint when we do this together, when we collaborate and communicate. And that was one of the goals I had as the chief of police. As they said, I've been with the department since August of 1988, so quite some time. I'm entering my 37th year of service here, all with Montgomery County. I was born and raised in Wheaton. I attended Weller Road Elementary School, Belt Junior High School, which has been defunct for a while. And then I graduated from Wheaton. I met my wife when we were in junior high school, and we're both lifelong county residents. I've been living here in the county for over 60 years now. So 40 years almost with the department and 60 years here in the county. I'm vaguely familiar with how everything works. I have 4 children, all raised here in Montgomery County. They went to school up here in Brookville. I now have 3 grandchildren, so I definitely have a vested interest in not only the well-being of our community, but in the services our police department provides, because they provide services not only to you, but to my family as well. Since being the chief, some of my priorities have been trying to focus on the increase in juvenile crime. I see a troubling pattern with our young kids. I never did all the right things when I was younger, but I certainly gave respect and attention to law enforcement whenever it was appropriate. I've seen that decrease, over certainly the last 10, if not 15 years, to the point where, I have 8, 10, 12-year-old kids in neighborhoods. When our officers drive through, they get cussed at and flipped off, and it's just not good. And I take ownership of that as a father, as a community member, and now as the chief, to try to find ways to reach our young people. They are our future, but I do see a troubling pattern. We have younger and younger kids committing more violent crimes in the county, especially involving handguns. It's disturbing. So I work closely with John McCarthy. He and I have been friends since I was an officer day one. And his office at the state's attorney's trying to figure out ways to, the answer is not to arrest our way out of this. It's not to put kids in jail, but to find partners in other agencies that can help collaborate on long-term solutions for our kids. Whether it be DJS or Child Protective Services, Health and Human Services. Our families are ever in need of, increased assistance, whether it be social, economic, or from a legal or a multitude of angles. And we all own a part of that, not just the police department. It's everybody. It's MCPS, and I've made a point to partner with Dr. Taylor since he's taken over MCPS. As you know, Marcus Jones, the former police chief, my former boss, is now the head of security over at MCPS. So we have an open line of communication, and I take advantage of that fully. And in trying to address the juvenile crime problem here in the county, um, from an outreach standpoint, initially trying to get kids more involved before they get involved in the criminal justice system. So we've made some strides, but there's still a lot of work to do. And like I said, it's not just the police department; it's other agencies countywide that need to step up and step in. Another area of focus for me has been officer wellness. Uh, it's something, mental health and well-being in law enforcement and first responders in general has been an issue that's been at the forefront nationwide in the last 5, 10 years. But I don't see us making much progress. It's something that we acknowledge is there. Um, but we haven't taken many steps, and I have created an initiative for officer wellness here on the department, not just from a mental health standpoint, but from a financial well-being, an educational well-being that starts when you're recruited as an officer. To try to get people educated on financial literacy, how to enter, how to plan for retirement, things long term that officers as 20 somethings coming out of college don't really think about. And then have officers themselves watch out after each other, and keep track from a mental health standpoint, identify problems. I formed a partnership with, it's called Harbor of Grace. It's actually in Havre de Grace, Maryland, that specializes in mental wellness for first responders, not just law enforcement, but fire rescue, our fire rescue partners as well. So we've had a tremendous amount of success there. And we look to expand that internally on our department. It's something that requires funding. And as we all know, funding is one of the things, aside from staffing, that's probably our biggest challenge as an agency. But it's something that's going to be and will continue to be, has been, and will continue to be a priority for me is mental well-being. Um, the other thing is technology. As your chief, I've made a commitment to expand our use of technology, whether it be, as you know, the Drone as First Responder program was started when I was the assistant chief in our Field Services Bureau. And it's continued now that I'm the chief. We've expanded from our 2 pilot locations down in Silver Spring and Wheaton. We're now up in the Gaithersburg area, and we have plans to, as soon as the legal wrangling is finally figured out, we will be down in Bethesda, and then hopefully eventually in all 6 districts here in the county. But that's just one way to leverage technology. The other thing is we're partnering our DFR program with what's called our Real-Time Information Center and our FUSIS, which is a computer system that links us to cameras. We have a camera program here in the county. It's called, you can register on mococonnect.org or .com, I forget which. But Moco Connect, we have, I think, about 1,500 cameras in the county, either business or individuals who have joined. And what that does is it gives us connectivity to your camera with your approval, to help us locate individuals who might be missing, to de-escalate situations, to identify criminal suspects, vehicles, things like that, and eventually solve, detect, prevent, and deter crime. So those are all things here in the county that those 3 areas I've been focusing on. The technology also extends to our automated traffic enforcement division, which covers our speed cameras. We've expanded underneath my guidance, the use of cameras to identify pedestrian safety issues. We've initiated a speed on green, which is we have speed cameras and red light cameras. They don't typically function together, but at certain intersections where we've identified problems with collisions, we can take a red light camera, say at University in Georgia, and turn on the speed function of that camera, meaning I can catch people who might speed up, as we all know happens, to get through a yellow light. We might have cars going through an intersection at 70 miles an hour just to get through the yellow light and avoid the red light. It's something that you will not get double tagged for, so you won't get a red light violation and a speed violation. The red light will take precedence, but it is something that we're exploring as a means of improving our Vision Zero efforts and traffic safety in the county. As I mentioned, there's the pedestrian function of our cameras that helps detect when vehicles enter intersections beyond crosswalks and things like that. And we're also piloting efforts to detect distracted driving. So I will be able to issue warnings at first and then tickets for people who are on their cell phones or doing their hair or putting on their makeup or otherwise occupied by other activities in your car other than what you're supposed to be doing, which is driving and making sure you pay attention to pedestrians who and other vulnerable road users that are using our roadways. In conjunction with that, we're also looking at the request of the council, the ability to identify noise violations. People have the misperception that a loud muffler equates to speed, and that is definitely not something that we are seeing. It can happen, but the noise violations tend to be common nuisance type things. Noise in your neighborhoods. People along the ICC complain about traffic going along there with a loud muffler. It is something that we're looking at, but I can tell everybody loud mufflers do not contribute to traffic safety. They are a quality of life thing. It's something that we acknowledge. I had complaints numerous as a district commander. I continue to get them from our community members, but it is not tied to traffic safety. Again, I just emphasize the fact that it's a quality of life thing, which I'm not immune to, but I just want to temper everyone's expectations on what they're going to see with that. But those are all ways technology can help us, along with we're trying to figure out how we can best use artificial intelligence to help officers write reports, manage their time better, conduct analysis and evaluation of our body-worn cameras to identify potential training issues or areas where officers can improve. All that is definitely pretty scary when it comes to AI, but it is definitely something that's the wave of the future. I can certainly ask an AI program to look at a officer's body-worn camera of an event and write a report off of that body-worn camera review, which then frees up the officer to go do other things. There are human checks and balances that we put in place to make sure we don't miss anything or make mistakes. But these are all ways that I'm a firm believer that technology is definitely the way of the future. It's the way that law enforcement will continue to expand. Just a couple of months ago, we were the largest police agency in the United States with a drone as first responder program. And since we sort of set the standard, about 5 or 6 other agencies of equal size have joined us. New York, NYPD most recently. Everyone does it a little bit differently. I think we do it really well here in Montgomery County. In fact, I've had the ACLU attorneys come to us and say, we want to use Montgomery County sort of as a template for establishing policy throughout the state. So it's something that we're very proud of. It was something that myself and Captain Kokinos at the time, who was director of our Special Operations Division, He and I partnered on that effort, and he has continued that as the commander of the 3rd District in trying to figure out ways that we can leverage technology to get more information to officers in a much more effective manner, much more quickly, and then eventually lead to what everyone here wants, including me, is for our officers to make the best decisions possible. So those are just 3 areas that I have focused on and will continue to focus on as the chief. Unfortunately, since July, I have been pulled in about 1,000 different directions to try to talk to groups and individuals, much like yourself. And I have begged the county executive to just give me a chance to run the police department for a little bit. So that's my focus in the next 6 months, or the first 6 months of 2025, is to really get out. I haven't been to all of our district stations to talk to our officers, despite having, I don't know, 250 different community meetings with individuals who want to ask me the same questions you guys are going to ask me tonight. It's something that I welcome. But again, I want to focus my efforts on running this to police department the most effective way possible to give everyone on this call and others exactly what they want and deserve in a police department. So with that, I welcome any questions that you all have, or any issues that you see. And if I can't answer them, I'll figure out a way to get the answer, and then I'll circle back with you and provide it in an email.
Okay, well, thank you for making time for us in your busy schedule. We really appreciate it. Looks like Alan Bowser has his hand up. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you, Chief, for joining us this evening. And congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
I made a list of questions, but first on my list is the category of immigration. And I'm wondering how, as Chief, you have the department responding to the federal immigration issues that we're dealing with. A few years ago, we were involved with the Trust Act, and that's a separation between what the county police would do with the federal immigration authorities. I'm wondering what your thoughts on immigration enforcement in the county.
Yeah, so thankfully, I don't have to change anything. It's something that was started while Chief Manger was here, probably more than 10 or 12 years ago. The policy was in place. We do not conduct operations with our federal partners in terms of immigration efforts or enforcement. We have that in writing from them. My partner with ICE, Matt Elliston, and I just met with the officials from HSI to hear the same things. Our officers are not and will not be, have never been involved in immigration efforts or enforcement with our federal partners, despite the fact that we have officers who work closely with them. We will continue to do investigations here in the county, just like we always have, which might mean a search warrant. It might mean undercover officers. It might mean activity in a neighborhood. But I can tell you unequivocally, it is not related to any sort of immigration enforcement. I've stood on the steps of the county office building with council members Glass, Ludke, Fenny Gonzalez. I've said the same thing. The county executive has stood firm in his approach to this. Montgomery County Police Department does not assist our federal partners with immigration enforcement, period.
Thank you so much for that answer. I have another question. One of the things that I've been concerned about over the last year is sort of the rise of anti-Semitism and sort of blatant racism in the county. We've seen anti-Semitic graffiti, racist graffiti on the increase. I'm wondering how you see the department handling anti-Semitism and racism.
Yeah, so it's a good question. When I was, excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather. when I was the assistant chief in the Field Services Bureau, one of the divisions that I oversaw was our community engagement division. In fact, I was the captain in our community engagement division when it was reinvigorated under former Chief Manger and former Assistant Chief Daryl McSwain. We do what I would say unequivocally is the best job in the entire country on reporting and documenting hate bias events. We absolutely document and report everything, meaning if you call me, and people have, and say, hey, I've got a swastika written in chalk on my sidewalk, or there could be a swastika or a Nazi symbol drawn on a 1-by-1 bathroom tile in a one of our schools or on a desk, even though there's no suspect. We will document that in an effort to identify trends, potentially identify suspects in the event that it continues. We work closely with our Jewish partners at the Israeli embassy. We have great partners with Ron Halber and several others who represent our Jewish religious institutions in partnering on reporting and educating everyone that we can reach out to in terms of hate bias. Yes, you're accurate in saying there's been a rise in anti-Semitic incidents. There's also been anti-Black, anti-Muslim. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of hate, even here in Montgomery County. But we have, at times, identified individuals and charged them, even if they don't live here in Maryland. We have an officer who works specializes in social media investigations, and we worked with MCPS to identify individuals who live as far away as Alaska, who have made threats here in the Montgomery County Public School System. And we work with our partners, federal and the state officials in the jurisdictions that these events take place to charge people with these crimes when appropriate. And again, I have a great relationship with John McCarthy, so we spend a lot of time collaborating on not everything elevates itself to something criminal, even though the public might say, I think that's a hate crime. Well, John McCarthy and the state's attorneys ultimately deem whether the criteria has been met to make something proceed with anything in a criminal case in our court system. We do that when appropriate. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's something we're very proud of. What it has resulted in the fact, if you look, Montgomery County has, I don't know, sometimes 100% more, 100 times more reported acts of hate bias here in Montgomery County than they do in Prince George's. Well, if you try to tell me that Montgomery County, we might have reported 380 hate bias incidents and Prince George's County only reported 30, I like the way we report much better than my partners in some other neighboring jurisdictions. I think we do a much better job at tracking and again, at ultimately, if we can, charging individuals. It does show somebody, hey, you got a problem in Montgomery County. And I say, no, there's a problem everywhere. We just do a lot better job of reporting it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Has the safety plan that the council put on the late night businesses in downtown Silver Spring, has that worked well enough in your view?
Yeah, I think that Commander McBain, he's now the assistant chief of our Field Services Bureau. He took over for me. He was the former commander, and I think the current commander, Jason Kukinis, would tell you that that plan has reduced not only calls for service, but ultimately criminal activity in the 3rd District. What we were seeing is Silver Spring was open later than all of our other jurisdictions. Our bars and restaurants were open till 4, 5, 6 in the morning. In DC, they close at 1. In Fairfax, they might close at 1 or midnight or 2 in the morning. Prince George's closes. And where does everyone go when everything else is closed? They come here to Montgomery County. That was causing a problem for the commanders in that district, but I think the late night plan has shown a significant decrease especially in our violent crime in the central business district in 3D. And I would be happy to direct Commander Kukinos to speak with you all directly on the stats that he's seen.
Do any of our other members have a question? You can go ahead and ask without raising your hand.
So I have a question about mental health. So one of the things that's been happening over the last couple of years is that we've say that we're giving priority to bringing in health and human services personnel to situations that have previously only been responded to by police officers. What's your assessment of how successful department's been to bring that cooperation with psychologists and sociologists and things like that?
So great question. Unfortunately, the Montgomery County Police Department is the only agency that can't say, I don't have enough people, I can't come, it's Saturday, it's 3 a.m, we're not coming. Other entities are able to say they don't have the staffing. And I work tremendously well with Dr. Bridgers, and he's put a tremendous amount of effort into establishing our co-response plan. So we have mental health professionals who co-respond to events along with police officers. Ultimately, they oftentimes, even though they're primarily the primary response unit, they will call for our assistance when they see or perceive a threat. If they do not have the staffing, they call us. If it's after hours, if it's on the weekends, there are a number of instances where they just cannot respond. So they call the police department, and we, unfortunately, are then responding by ourselves. In theory, it has worked really well when we're able to do this together. And we've seen a lot of really good results. There's still a long way to go. Health and Human Services is suffering the same shortages that I'm facing as a police department. And I'm working with Dr. Bridges on figuring out the best way to move that forward. Just recently, some of his folks have agreed to attend training with our folks that we put on, with our negotiators, with our mental health response team, so that they have a better idea of what we're experiencing. They get the same training we get. We're all on the same page when we respond. And in the instances when everyone is available and everyone can go, it's worked out really well.
So what I don't understand from what you just said, you said if the HHS people on the scene have a problem, they called Montgomery County Police. What happens when Montgomery County Police are the first responders and somebody's having a mental health incident?
We always call HHS. We always reach out. We don't always get an availability. Sometimes their response time is an hour and a half due to we've had situations where they're already on a call and their staff can't break away from what they're doing to come to help us. So we have to go, and it might be an hour and a half before they get there or they're able to chime in or take over. That's just the way things are right now. If everyone had unlimited staffing, I think we'd be in a much better place. We just don't have that right now.
So
Okay.
let me ask you just a follow-up question. What happens how do you involve Gaithersburg and Rockville in particular into these kinds of situations? Do they draw on the county resources? Do they have their own city resources, or how do you handle that?
We're all drawing. HHS serves Gaithersburg City, Rockville City, Montgomery County, it doesn't matter. So we're all drawing from the same resources.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Jerry, and then David.
We've seen problems on the West Coast with evacuations. Have we done any planning? Maybe not actually doing a full evacuation, but how would we handle evacuations? Because we saw the police department, the fire department in LA vicinity did not do a good job.
I'm assuming you're talking about in response to a natural disaster of some type, a fire or an earthquake. That would fall on OEMHS, which is Luke Hodgson. We're constantly in contact with them. There's a plan in place. There's a joint operations center that everything focuses on and runs out of. And decisions are made as a group in response to any sort of natural disaster.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
David? David, you can unmute yourself. David, we can't hear you.
If somebody has one and they either can't unmute or don't get it asked, I'd be more than happy if you submit it to me in an email. I'd be more than happy to answer whatever questions you guys have.
Joan McDermott.
Hi, thank you. I I wondered, I may have missed it at the beginning, if you have a way to approach the rash of car car attacks on our neighborhood. We just had at least 3 cars whose catalytic converters were stolen. Mine was one of them. That was the second time. So I realize these gangs move really fast through neighborhoods, and I wonder what strategies you can use.
So each district commander, where do you live?
I'm in Kensington, Kensington Estates. We're in District 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you know who your district commander is?
No, we have
So
a
that's
liaison, but I don't know the commander.
Yeah, so that's a problem. So everyone on the call should know who their district command staff is. And if there's an issue like this, you need to reach out directly to them. Each district commander, in your case, it's Amy Dom, has resources available to them. They have special assignment teams. They have covert groups. They have officers on patrol. They can, you as a community, as an HOA, can request through the FOP off-duty help. But each commander is required to come up with plans to address crime sprees and things like you described. Catalytic converter thefts, yes, we do not. We've seen a drop off in that particular area recently, but it continues to be a problem, especially among work vans and commercial vehicles. It's an easy target. The thieves can get in and out of, well, out from underneath of your car in oftentimes less than a minute. It's not conducive to them being caught in the act. But we do have detectives and investigators. If a trend is identified, they can follow up, search social media, things like that. Sometimes we can find things that are being sold. We can identify um, uh, car repair places who might buy stolen items. And then on the rare occasion we do identify a group, it's not always a gang. Sometimes it's not that sophisticated. It's just a group of kids going around and putting 3 or 4 in their car overnight. And each one of those can bring a couple $100 in these metals that they're trying to extract from the catalytic converter themselves. So it's a very difficult crime to prevent. We have districts, the 4th district in particular, had a identification program where they were etching catalytic converters for anyone that wanted to come in for free. They would etch it with a personal identification number, a PIN number, so to speak, on your catalytic converter, so that if something was stolen, it could be traced. But in your particular case, without any marking, there's no way, even if we were to recover 100 catalytic converters from a warehouse or a storage unit, that we could tie it back to your vehicle. And therefore, we probably would be at a stretch to charge anyone with that. So it's a very difficult crime. It's something that's very frustrating, not only for you all, but for me as well. But yeah, each district commander has their own plan in place on how to figure those things out. And if you have, as you say in your neighborhood, several that occur over a weekend or in a short period of time, I would encourage you to reach out to that district commander, let them know so they can put it on their radar and increase patrols or try to figure something else out for your neighborhood.
Okay, David, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so a couple of questions. Um, are you using drones?
Yes,
Do you find it a good thing?
100%. It's one of the most successful programs we've ever had in the Montgomery County Police Department history.
Okay. Next question. I've been involved with gun violence prevention, and I was involved with a gun buyback up in uh, Germantown. And also, I attended one that was done by the Rockville Police Department. And I just wondered if you think those buybacks are helpful, and how do you see the gun problem developing?
As I said before, guns are a huge problem in our county, especially among our young people. They're used more often in crimes nowadays. They're used more frequently amongst our young people as a means of settling arguments or just walking around. It's bad. Gun buyback. I mean, I don't think it is successful as people would want to imagine those efforts are. Typically, what we see are guns that are broken, antiques, people like yourself turning in a gun that was handed down by your father to you, things like that. We're not taking the PMFs, the 9 millimeters that are being used in our crimes off the streets. Is it something that's worthwhile? I mean, any gun you take off the street potentially could be stolen or used or in a crime, but I don't think that's the answer to combating gun violence.
And what would be your suggestion as the best way?
Well, recently you've seen laws passed that only serve to restrict or prevent law enforcement from being proactive. We don't want officers to stop people for minor traffic violations. We don't want officers to ask people for consent to search. We have prevented officers from talking with juveniles of a certain age. All of these things, in my estimation, while I guess in theory they were put in place to as oversight measures on police, I see it just hampering our efforts. We typically, as we saw down in Silver Spring with the late night business plan, a lot of our crime comes not from Montgomery County residents, but from residents who live outside the county. A lot of our guns make their way into Montgomery County or travel through Montgomery County, not on foot, but in a vehicle. And if you take away an officer's ability to stop a car, to search a car, to request consent, all those things, they contribute to, in my estimation, one thing: increased crime and the increased number of guns that are floating out there available to people.
Okay, last question, Brookville Knowles.
Hi, my name's Maria Bender with the Brookville Knowles HOA. First, I'd just like to thank you very much for everything you do for our county, Chief. You also helped my son because you were his baseball coach many, many years ago.
What's your last name?
Bender.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you have so many kids that you coached.
I was going to say I've coached probably 1,000 kids in my life. So, yeah.
My question, and it's more around Olney, and I see it more and more, is the number of panhandlers. Just about every day on all four corners of Georgia Avenue and Route 108, you see somebody panhandling. I've heard before it's not illegal. I know that it's an issue if they become aggressive, and they're not, I wouldn't say aggressive, but they will walk up to your car and stare in your face in the window. And it just looks horrible as you're driving through that intersection. Any thoughts on how to?
So, yeah, so I mean, I feel your pain because I live in the Alney Brookville area and I see it as well. I see it as I travel throughout the county. Um, our our government, our agencies here in the county have deemed um, panhandling, as you said, it is not a crime. The officers cannot charge anyone with that. There are certain things that we can charge somebody for, such as obstructing traffic, impeding traffic, things like that. But if I were to charge one of these individuals with that, if one of my officers were to do that, it oftentimes leads to an argument. Then somebody films it. It could lead to a use of force. And ultimately, we get, as law enforcement officers, get ridiculed for why are you bothering that guy? He's just trying to get a cup of coffee. Um, I don't know the right solution, but uh, they tried to make it so that they have to come in, they can do this panhandling, but they have to come in and get a permit. That doesn't work either. If I were to charge somebody and it goes smoothly and they stop doing whatever it is they're doing, they go to court, there's nothing that is going to happen to them. They're not going to go to jail. They're not going to get a fine. They have no means of paying it. Um, and it doesn't solve the problem. So it is something that we as a county have allowed to happen, and law enforcement is probably not the best answer to stop it from becoming a problem or a quality of life thing, much like homelessness. Homelessness is not a crime. I have businesses when I was the fourth district commander who would call and say, I have this gentleman, he comes by every morning, he urinates in front of my store. We would go down, we've charged him a number of times. He doesn't come to court. There's a warrant for him. It's just not the solution that anybody wants. I don't know what the answer is, unfortunately. But it is, I recognize it, that it causes people concern. But I don't think that law enforcement is necessarily going to be the answer to eliminate those people who come here. The best that I can say, I tell my wife this, who wants to give them $5 every time she drives by. I said, stop giving them money. As hard as it is, stop giving them money because they will tell you they come here to Montgomery County because we give.
Okay, final comment. Housing is a big discussion these days in the county. And how much of a problem is it recruiting and retaining police officers, the cost of housing? And if you know of any other jurisdictions that have come up with a good solution so that police officers can afford to live in the county.
Yeah, they give us there's a tax credit that you get as a county employee if you live here in the county. It's not much, but it's something. Our starting salary for law enforcement here is ranks, I think, currently fifth or sixth out of a dozen. Um, in terms of starting salary, we have a very expensive county to live in, as everyone would tell you. We have more and more officers who are seeking residence outside the county because they can get more for their money in Frederick or Howard or even as far away as the Eastern Shore or Virginia. Um, we all draw from the same pool of prospective candidates. So we're all essentially fishing out of the same pond. Our county executive and the county council, we just finished arbitration, bargaining. Our salary is increasing. Is it number one in the state? No. And unfortunately, for a 20-something coming out of college, they don't care about the overall compensation over the course of your 25-year career. They care about that first number when they come out and they graduate. What are you going to pay me year one? Right now, we're middle of the pack. Our recent arbitration or bargaining pushed us up near the top, but other agencies are entering the same bargaining stance that we just finished. So they will again surpass us, I would imagine. So we have to be innovative. We have to be creative in the ways we recruit. Unfortunately, housing in the county is very expensive, and it's more expensive than it is in Delaware or Pennsylvania or Virginia or PG or a lot of other places that are also looking for police officers. It's a struggle. If I had the answer, I could pretty much name my job on a national level in terms of recruiting law enforcement officers, but I don't have that one answer. It's a matter of being creative and innovative in our strategies, trying to move forward.
Okay, well, we have used up more than the allotted time. I want to thank you again for all you do for the community and also wish you the best of luck in your first year as chief. We're rooting for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I need all the thoughts and prayers I can get, and it's always nice to hear like from people. I run into them all the time, like Mrs. Bender, who I coached their kid at some point. I still take pride in that. I plan on resuming my coaching responsibilities once my grandkids reach that age. My last stint was over at Sherwood High School, so. Yeah, it's something that I love to do. I love to give back to the county in any way I can, either as a coach or as the chief of police. So please invite me back if you want. Again, at some point, I'd be happy to come back.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. Sorry for that abrupt beginning. The police chief got on and he seemed anxious to start. He only had a half an hour. Anyway, welcome to our February meeting. My name is Cheryl Gannon. I think most of you know me. Before we move on, we have routine business that we need to conduct to start a meeting. First up is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, published on page 2 of the January newsletter, posted on our website. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion.
Seconded?
Second.
Okay, and as all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Are there abstentions? The agenda is adopted. The next order of business is to adopt the minutes of the January 13th meeting, published on pages 8 to 10 of the newsletter. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The motion is adopted. Next is the treasurer's report. Jerry Garson is our treasurer. Go ahead, please, Jerry.
We operate on a fiscal year from July 1 through February 10th. We've collected $1,783 of membership dues. We've had expenses of $1,228, giving us a net income of $555. Our current bank balance is $6,671. Are there any questions?
Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to announcements. I first say briefly, we have a sort of newish member, the Lux Manor Civic Association. They had lapsed for a little bit and now they've renewed. We're delighted to have them back. I don't know if they're here tonight, but if you are, welcome back. We also have a renewal from Stonegate Civic Association and an individual member, Luella Mast, who I did see here tonight. Thank you for the renewals. The Civic Fed is a co-sponsor of the February 27th annual Budget Palooza, which is also sponsored by the Parents Coalition and the Montgomery County Taxpayers League. It's a sort of a deep dive into the school budget. The event will be held by Zoom from 7 to 9 p.m. MCCF members are invited to participate. The sponsors are looking for volunteers to take a section of the budget, review it, and present it to the group. If you're interested in any of that, look at our latest newsletter online, gives you all the information that you need to participate. Registration is open to sign up to testify on the new corridors housing proposal, which we will discuss a little bit under old business. This is an announcement that those who are interested should sign up to testify, even though the list of roads has not been made available. You can always cancel your appearance later if you need to, but the slots may well fill up. So if you think you might be interested in testifying, you should sign up. The hearing is on March 11th, and you can choose 1:30 p.m. or 7:30 p.m., and you can choose in person or virtual testimony. You can also, as always, submit testimony to the council without testifying. Are there any other announcements from delegates? Okay, old business. You should have received an email. I sent a letter to the council asking them to postpone the March 11th hearing for a bit. There's still not a list of roads that they're proposing to update. I've asked, the planning staff is not answering questions about the proposal because they didn't write it. They're studying it right now and not able, so they're just referring all questions to the council. When it was first announced, asked for a list of the roads and also another question about the MPDU program and whether this workforce housing requirement replaces the MPDU program. And I asked a question about expansion, consolidation of lots to expand it. I did get an answer on the consolidation of lots. I didn't get answers on the other two questions. And there are a number of questions that we have about parking, a potential of a pattern book, what kind of citizen input, beyond the really huge question of which roads they're attempting to upzone. So I have not posted so I have not received a response to my request for them to postpone the hearing. So I imagine they're not going to do it, which is a big problem because the normal process, is the planning would have drafted this ZTA and there would have been a public meeting. We could watch the presentation of the staff to the planning board and understand the proposal. The council PHP would have had a work session where they discussed it. We could have understood some more. They usually call in the zoning staff and ask their own questions. But all of this was done behind the scenes at the council and just revealed when it was a ZTA. And so we've missed all those different steps that we would normally use to learn about a proposal. And the ZTA, if you've seen it, is just a highly technical document. It will uses a lot of technical jargon and refers back to changes that are existing in the code. So you'd have to either know the code inside and out or refer back to it constantly. So I think that this is being at a huge disadvantage for us to be expected to sign up to testify and understand this proposal without any kind of a technical briefing. I see that Natalie Fanny Gonzalez is holding some briefings. I think the Kensington groups have one scheduled with Friedson and Fanny Gonzalez and Kate Stewart. I wrote a letter to Natalie Fanny Gonzalez on behalf of the South Fourth Corners Civic Association because the hearing on their University Boulevard plan was the same day as her announced town hall meeting about it. So there's a conflict because those particular residents around the University Boulevard plan would want to be at both. So she's announced another one today, a virtual one for March 5th. Some of the meetings that she's announced that she's doing come after the hearing, which is, another problem. So in the next few days, I'm hoping that the county executive will have more of an analysis. If you look through his newsletter that he sends out this week, he sent out a more in-depth analysis of his thoughts on the proposal. And so I'm hoping to have something to send out to all of our members and delegates, sort of a rundown of what's in these ETAs in the next few days. But it has really been a difficult slog trying to figure it out and get the information that we need. So beyond just substantively what's in the ZTA, we should at some point talk about process here because the fact that they did all of this at the council behind the scenes without any involvement from the planning board really removes them from the legal requirements of notice and open meetings that the MNCPPC, because it's a state agency, has to strictly abide by. And as one of our delegates pointed out to me, whatever the council members say at a town hall meeting is not something you can rely on, in court. Not that this is going to court, but the process has become a big problem here, and the lack of transparency into it and how the ZTA got written and why, and what the justifications for the various provisions of it are. We have lots of questions about a pattern book, development standards, where's the parking going, public input. It's an administrative internal approval. Will notice go to neighborhoods, will notice go to affected homeowners. If you haven't seen the letter that I sent to the council with the justification for postponing the hearing, let us know. And oops, we've still people trying to get into the meeting. If you haven't seen the letter that I sent to the council talking about this and the justification for postponing the hearing, so ask us for it, or I see that Jackie Boko is here. Maybe we can put it in the housing section on the website, Jackie, and then people can go there and get it. But I just thought with that introduction, maybe we could open up the discussion a little bit to see if people have things they want to bring up or talk about with the new corridors proposal. I see David has a hand up, and then Brenda. David.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And by the way, I got a new computer, but it should have my last name on there. It's David Kosterlitz, and I'm the president of Wingate Citizens Association, a delegate to MCCF. I think that this has the earmarks of unreliability, shall we say? That's sort of a polite way of saying it. First we had this AHSI, Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative. And I know that MCCF opposed that and expressed opposition, and so did the county executive. But I don't know what has happened to that. And this seems like an attempt to do something somewhat similar, sort of through the back door, if you will. So I'd just like to ask if anybody knows what happened to the AHSI, and then is this the backdoor equivalent of it? And how can they? I mean, this seems like a sleight of hand trick.
Yeah. So I did get one response from Kate Stewart's chief of staff about the proposal, where she said, we see this as different from attainable housing and in addition to it. And I think she was parsing it that way. This is just my guess, because she had been on Kojo Namdi on Friday saying that there was no legislation in the works and that she was not planning to introduce anything. And then on Tuesday, 3 days later, there's a 90-page ZTA set of ZTAs with her name on them. But I think nobody is saying this replaces attainable housing, the council members. So I know this is as much as I know, David, and maybe somebody else knows something.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So Brenda, do you have something to say?
Yes, I do. I hope you can hear me. We attended a meeting with Evan Glass last Monday when this thing had first been introduced. And
a little louder.
Turn up your thing. I'm going to talk loud as I can. But everyone at Glass indicated that this was a big surprise, and that they even in the county had not had a chance to look at it. Appears to be that this has something to do with upcoming elections, because the council is dividing in terms of who wants to be in first, who wants to be county, head of the county, and also get some of these seats. So evidently this did not go through the normal process, and it appears to be that it may have been intentional. I have to go because I have another Zoom meeting, but I just wanted to squeeze those words in. Thank you.
Okay, Elliot Chabot.
Yeah, question, where is this multiple pieces of legislation, or is this just one item? And if you could identify what the bill numbers are or the ZTA numbers, I think that would be enormously.
Yeah, yes. So I will put that tomorrow. We can put that in the housing section. We have a document came out from the council, but it's basically 4 ZTAs. One governs the building of multifamily housing on unnamed corridors. One governs creating a use for what are commercial buildings being converted to residential buildings. One is a tax measure that gives a 25-year tax holiday to developers that convert highly vacant office space to residential space. And I'm trying to remember the fourth. The other ones all three of the other ones relate to the conversion of office to residential. And then there's the one ZTA that is for multifamily housing on corridors. So we do have a list of them, and we can put them in the housing section of the website tomorrow. But also, if you go to the council's calendar and scroll to March 11th, and then there's the sign up for the hearings, and you'll see 4 items on there that relate to this proposal. And when you click on them, it gives a small description of what each one is, so that you can choose which one to sign up for. Looks like Jerry Garson, you're next.
After reading the CTAs on the R90 zoning, which is where we live, we see that they're adding that you can build a whole series of non-fireproof townhouses on a large lot with just 18 feet wide housing. And this is a major change to the single family zoning, and it basically could put a huge number of additional housing units in with no parking. One of the things that I've gotten in our neighborhoods is basically if you don't provide parking, most of our streets would have to be made into one-way streets. They're trying to jam as much possible in there. But then when you look at what the federal government has just proposed is a 25% tariff on lumber, which it makes things even less affordable. And the county cannot change the tariffs from a nationwide basis to our county. And all new housing is becoming more and more unaffordable to almost anyone.
I see we have some new people here. I'm wondering if you could quickly introduce yourself or turn your camera on. Aaron H. and Simon Weaver. I don't think we've met you before. Looks like Aaron left. Oh, there she is. I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Aaron.
Sort of.
Close to the camera.
Okay, where do you live, Aaron?
I'm the treasurer with the Oak Tree Community Center.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. Thomas Lincoln, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Thomas Lincoln. I'm the treasurer for the Hungerford Civic Association in Rockville. We're kind of newly formed, and we're looking to join the group. So
Great.
thought I would join the meeting today.
Great. Thank you for joining. Welcome. I hope you do join us. And Simon Weaver, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. Good evening, everybody. This is Simon Weaver. I am the treasurer for the Aspen Hill Civic Association. This is first time, so pleasure to meet everybody.
Well, you've been members for a long time. Thank you for that, and welcome. Anybody else new here today? Anita, are you new? Anybody else want to introduce themselves? Anita? Maybe not. Any more discussion on?
Oh, sorry. Hi, I don't know if my camera is working right now, but just I'm from the Hillendale, the HCA, the Hillendale group. So I've been this is I think my 3rd meeting, but just happy to be here. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. Thanks for coming. Okay, any more discussion or Joan Beerweiler, go ahead, Joan.
I just like to say Simon Weaver is a delegate he's a newly elected delegate to the Civic Fed. from the Aspen Hills Civic Association, as he said. And two of our delegates resigned, Saul Levy and Jameson Adcock. So I, Joan Beerwaller, and Simon Weaver are now the two delegates from the Aspen Hills Civic Association. Okay. Well, thanks for the update. You guys have been around for a long time. We appreciate you. So does anyone else have anything to discuss on this housing proposal, next steps? I do want to ask, I did ask all the delegates, if your civic feels like you can back up our request to postpone the March 11th hearing so we can get more information, including the major thing like the list of roads, that takes a while in my letter, I made the point, it takes a while for that to work its way to a civic association. Then somebody has to do the work and try to understand it. And then there has to be a communication mechanism to your residents, and it's some decision made. These things don't move all that fast. I mean, they can move pretty fast, but this is a very compressed, tight timeline that they've put us on with incomplete information. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's the way this government should be running. I don't think we should tolerate it, really. So if anyone can write to their council members saying that you agree with the position of the Civic Federation, that the hearing should be postponed until full information is available and civics have had time to analyze it and talk about it in their neighborhood, I would appreciate that. Anything else on this proposal? John Holden has Marc Elrich's, a link in the chat to Marc Elrich's latest blog post. And he's put the ZTAs up for us. Thank you, John. If anybody wants to go into the chat and copy those links, we'll also put them on the housing section of the website. Eric Cathcart, Eric, you're saying hello, I see, but did you want to speak, Eric?
No, I'm fine. I'm just sharing my name.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for that. Jeff Griffith, go ahead.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm sorry I couldn't get my hand to raise digitally, so I just stuck it up in the air.
I noticed you now.
As you know, there are a number of we associations who are in contact with our various council members and sending questions, and we get a variety of answers and pieces of information. I was just thinking, those of us who know each other, that is the associations, and down in Kensington, we're doing a lot of that kind of sharing. But it occurs to me that it would be useful for us to send to you anything we get that you may or may not have seen, and for you, as you suggested, post information that CivFed receives from the members, so that we're all tuned in to what is being, how the council members are responding. It would be very helpful if you would be a clearinghouse for that information. We'll certainly send you the information we get back from Kate Stewart and from Friedson, and I'm sure the others will as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I was thinking sort of what's in the plan, that document, of putting it in Google Docs, and I know that some people are asking those questions and gathering answers. I can give out the link to it, and you can copy and paste what you get right into the doc. And just so everyone knows, I have invited Councilmember Friedson to come to a meeting on a date of his choosing so that we can talk to him about this proposal. I have not received an answer yet. Councilwoman Natalie Fanny Gonzalez has offered to come in March. I haven't answered that yet because I'm trying to figure out who we want to speak to, and whether or not having her come after the hearing is really all that helpful. But I'm working on bringing some council members to Civic Fed meetings. I was kind of holding open a spot for Friedson, but I have not heard from him. Does somebody else want to talk?
Steve Solomon.
Yeah. Hi, Cheryl. I'm with Kent Mill Civic Association. We sent a letter as well in conjunction with Glenview Neighborhood Association also asking for a postponement of this March hearing, and we were denied that as well. So I don't know how many individual civic associations have sent those, but we tried as well and were shot down. So it's created quite the uproar with us on our individual listserv. Someone started a WhatsApp group to see what else can be done. That's been nonstop complaints and comments the last couple of days. So yeah, and we are not unfortunately members of the Civic Fed. We're still working on that. But we're trying. We're meeting some resistance, but yeah, we've done that as well in conjunction with a neighborhood association next to us.
Feel free to reach out to me by email about the resistance, and if you think there's something I can do, I'm always willing to go have coffee with someone. And
we're almost there. I think by our next meeting we'll get approval. We had to go through many bylaw changes just for someone to allow us in. My colleague Ira Unger is on here as well.
Okay.
Hopefully by next meeting we're members, but it's been a process. But yeah, we joined with Glenview to try to write a letter to them but
yeah.
it was shut down.
So I see John Holden thank you for that, Steve. John Holden has a question in the chat. What determined the 4 council members that I addressed the letter to last week? The 2 main sponsors of it, and then the council president and vice president, who are responsible for how the council functions. But I'm going to send it to the remaining council members, asking them to back up our request for a postponement. I think there's a strategy here to just put this out by surprise on a very short timeline so that, no real opposition can get built. And that's what we're up against here. It's not like they didn't realize that people wouldn't have time to review it if they put it out without streets. Okay, I do see you, Brookfield Knowles, but David has had his hand up, and then Liz Joyce, and then Brookfield Knowles.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Our neighborhood association has as our council representative Andrew Friedson, and we even had him come and speak to our group about 4 or 5 months ago. And at that time, he was all gung-ho about the AHSI, and he thought for sure duplexes and triplexes were coming to the single-family neighborhoods. I have heard that he specifically carved out Potomac from that whole thing. And I don't know if he lives in Potomac, but maybe. But anyway, this is not good government. It's not as bad as if they had gotten Elon Musk involved to help them, but this is not the way due process is supposed to function. It's supposed to be notice and an opportunity to be heard, as you pointed out, Cheryl, and I appreciate that. So I mean, if I was, all I did, I took your message to the MCCF and I posted it on our neighborhood listserv. And some people said, do you have any, got back to me, do you have any recommended action? I said, well, if you look in there, there was one person who had in your thing that said, write to your council people. Well, am I really, I mean, I can try to see if we can get a vote of our civic association, but with this kind of a deadline, I don't know that we can get it in this much time. But and am I really going to, as a constituent, write to Friedson and say, what the heck are you doing? So I feel a little bit stymied, just like I do with the new federal administration.
Yeah. I feel you. It's an extreme uphill climb, but I think it was meant to be. But I think that we should call them out on this because you're right, this isn't a way for a government to run where you don't have all the details in this tight deadline. And I'm really, I've been thinking a lot yesterday and today about the fact that they bypassed
the planning board and staff in writing the ZTA. I'd like to know really who wrote the ZTA. Because the planning board, a day after it was announced, and I wrote to Lisa Govani, she said, we're just starting to study it ourselves. You have to talk to the council. And, you know, as I said, that bypasses a lot of requirements for notice and explanation and open meetings. And that's very problematic process-wise. Shame they've done it, because this proposal probably has elements of it that really have some promise and that people could get behind. Okay, is there another hand up? I'm having Liz. Oh, sorry, Liz, Joyce,
Yes.
and then Brookville Knowles.
I wanted to ask Steve, he said they were shut down. Did they get a direct response that the hearing will not be postponed? The Kemp Mill people?
Hey, Liz, I'll check with our president on that, Jules, but because I communicated with him via email, and he just basically said that the reply he got was that there would not be a postponement, that it's
I think they extended it for a few days, but not the few weeks.
Okay. Well, this is terribly important. I think this is the first definitive no we've gotten. It's difficult to convey to people
right. They
who
gave a 1 week, right, Ira? I believe that's what
I think it was a few days. I think it was like 3 days.
Because we had a special meeting just 5 days ago because of this, and we're going to try to write another letter with some specifics of ideas that we have about the plan. It's a complex 150-page thing with a lot of vagueness to it. But yeah, so we're meeting again next week with a special meeting to try to put together at least another letter we can put forth with some issues that we have about the plan, even if we can't postpone the March date.
Yeah, I'm still on the
Ira, do you know more than I do? I may be speaking out of turn about the details of this, but that's what I remember from the past meeting.
Right. And we have a community meeting at the end of February also.
Okay.
With the county.
Okay.
Oh,
go ahead, Liz.
I just wanted to say that it's really difficult to convey the irregularity of this. And somebody in John Holden has just written that they asked Friedson at a meeting to compare and contrast AHSI and this new plan, and he declined to do that. Well, why would that be? They had these listening sessions, they got all this feedback, they repeatedly assured us that there was no legislation, no ZTA had been written, and then 3 days later, after Kate Stewart was on Kojo, they came out with this 90-page bill that they had said had been in the works for many weeks. And I don't think you have to be paranoid to be concerned about what's going on here, what's the process, why the rush. And if you try to read the bill, which I have done several times, it's very difficult to discern exactly what they're referring to. They use vague terms like adequate facilities, adequate parking, don't define it. It's really incomprehensible. And so not only is it a 90-page document, but it is unclear. So what is the rush to put forward this document produced by the council in a way that does not follow the law? So we have more of the kind of thing we've had before. And as to whoever said that half of Potomac was cut out, yes, half of Potomac was cut out of Thrive, which is the general plan. So that was deliberate on the part of the then President Friedson. So there are reasons for people to say, wait a minute, what are you doing? How are you doing this and why? And are you being fair to everybody? Because if you're not willing to listen to what and to present yourself to answer questions, what's going on here?
Why was there no public discussion at all before the council, before this bill was introduced? No work session in the PHP committee? There's a complete lack of transparency here.
Brookville Knowles, you're next.
Yeah, I'm just going to agree with everything you guys have been saying, and this has been their MO, right? Sneak it in, nobody's paying attention, let's just rush it through. And I think the last time with AHSI, the media got involved and it got a lot more attention. And then that kind of came to a grinding halt when, hundreds of people are showing up at these listening sessions. So they kind of calmed down and we all thought it went away and now it's starting up again. And I just think we maybe need to involve the media again. I know out where I am, we have the Olney News, and maybe if somebody gets to Channel 7 and they announced something on the news about it and it got a lot of attention. And I think we need to do the same thing. Fight fire with fire.
I agree. Get fired up. Did I hear Joy Squads a minute ago?
You didn't hear me, Cheryl, but there's somebody in the chat, Barbara Hoover, who said she can't raise her hand but would like to speak.
Oh, Barbara Hoover, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I'm with the West Montgomery County Citizens Association. We're in Freedson's area, and we are also the Potomac area. I guess 2 points is that we have been fairly diligent trying to get Freedson to come talk to us or answer us, and he is very consistent and completely stonewalling us on every request. And that we are working on getting an action alert out to all of our members who we feel really need to know that this is going on. And I expect that will go out shortly.
That's great. You said you had two things. Is that, oh, the action alert. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just trying to keep track. Thanks for all you do, Barbara. Let me see. Is there another hand up? Anybody else have any advice, suggestions, concerns?
There's some great comments in the chat that are worth reading.
Yeah, Alan, will you save the chat? What's the relationship between the corridors planned and the more housing? Oh, the UBC plan. I mean, that's part of a process question that I had because the UBC plan went through kind of a sort of a process where it was announced and there was community meetings, et cetera. And these corridor ones, I guess the corridors just the developers make a plan and go straight to planning for administrative approval of it. So it looks to me, in terms of a relationship, that this is a way to kind of make the whole process faster and I think what's left out of it is community input. I mean, obviously there's no rezoning required because they create an optional method for housing that's on the corridors. But it also doesn't have to go before the board and go to the council. It just goes, it's handled administratively by staff. But I do have a question about what kind of procedures the staff is going to follow when they get a request to develop a corridor. John said a number of people, including Marc, which think that the more housing now.
Message for now, and I think
who's speaking?
Jerry.
John Holden has a comment here that says a number of people, including Marc Elwich, think that the more housing now is only a first incremental step toward implementing attainable housing. If more people realize this, perhaps we could get the council's attention. Media attention is likely necessary. Yeah. I think, if you remember in attainable housing, one aspect of it was a corridors for denser housing on the corridors. So it's like they picked out a piece of it to get it done. The other thing I want to say about lack of transparency is that first day this was announced on the YIMBY Facebook page. There was all kinds of congratulations being given to Carrie Kazecki, who's the lobbyist for Coalition for Smarter Growth, and giving the Coalition for Smarter Growth credit for this. It's pretty clear to me that in the behind the scenes
activity that none of us were privy to was even happening. Coalition for Smarter Growth was a key player and may even have drafted it. Anything else, anyone? Another message in the chat. The corridor recommendation in the UBC plan are drastically different than the ZTA. The recommendations for University Boulevard to upzone all blocks along the corridor to CRN by right with a maximum height of 50 feet, not just houses on the. In the new ZTA 2502, they're recommending only corridor facing properties be allowed to have duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, small apartments with a height of 40 feet, not upzoning to CRN and not by right. It would be through optional method, which is an additional administrative process, and a site plan would be required. So there would be a public hearing. Since no CRN, there's no commercial. However, in the zoning code definition of an apartment building, 10% of a gross floor area can be retail. Also, this ZTA does allow for home-based businesses and daycares, which is something that creates a question about, parking and how much activity there will be on site. And home-based businesses, I don't really know what's encompassed in that, maybe it's just CPAs or something, but could it be a dentist or a chiropractor? So I think that's one area that I have more questions about. But yes, this UBC plan is obviously bigger than they say they're looking for on the rest of the corridors. John, if you're here, can you tell us how many houses are being included in the UBC corridor plan? John?
Yeah, it's more than 500 are being upzoned.
Wow.
And page 76 of their plan indicates that proudly states that the plan allows for 4,000 new residential units.
Wow.
That's along a 3.5 mile stretch of University Boulevard and slightly into the neighborhoods. So it's not insignificant.
Wow. So what did they do on the University Boulevard? Did they measure how far back it would go? Must take in the streets behind University Boulevard then?
It does. And well, my neighborhood has paid most attention to the area near Four Corners, and they're proposing, of course, removing it's a whole corridor plan. So they're talking about removing traffic lanes on University Boulevard, which is going to have to allow for bus rapid transit, which has not been planned or funded or studied. But and there are going to obvious expected impacts on cut through traffic through our neighborhoods, which are even more narrow streets, often without sidewalks and the like. And that's parking is another reason why parking is also a big issue.
Any other comments or discussion?
We haven't paid attention to the fact that a huge deficiency of the AHSI was a lack of planning for infrastructure, a lack of any kind of consideration of how these streets, the entire structure of our community, which was built by civil engineers for a certain number of homes, could suddenly be expanded without extensive changes to the infrastructure and upgrades. And all of these proposals seem to ignore that, which is recklessly irresponsible. And whether it's the old plan or this plan, there is a lack of information that is public administration malpractice, really. And this is something we're not supposed to notice.
Yeah, I mean, the conversion of vacant office space to housing is actually a proposal that I personally have testified in support in the Silver Spring plan. I think a lot of jurisdictions are doing that successfully, but it's difficult to do and it's expensive. But DC has done quite a bit of it. But I wonder whether a 25-year tax holiday, because I noticed in the ZTA that it's not just for taking the existing office building and turn it into housing. It also will apply if you demolish a building that's half or more vacant, and build something entirely new, which is just the regular work that developers are doing in the county right now. And I think it was Paul Jarozinski, I don't know if he's here or not, has raised a question with me about who's going to pay. Is it taxpayers going to pick up the tab for all of the infrastructure when there's huge tax holiday for those particular projects? 25 years seems like a lot. Paul Jarozinski, are you here by any chance?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to make?
No, you're right. I mean, there are just so many things that aren't covered. As Fanny Gonzalez put in our announcement, this is going to drive down costs. But that's in her public announcement of her sessions that she's having. So that's a big question that she needs to be asked publicly. Just how is this going to drive down costs? And who's going to pay for the infrastructure costs? And I also, this is probably the best time, Cheryl, to mention that the state bill, if you're looking at what the state's doing at the state level, Mark Corman's bill requires 50% affordable housing when they do one of these buildings for their pilot tax break. And that was why one of my comments, 15% affordable housing is a drop in the bucket as far as attacking that problem. And if they're going to give that level of tax break, they ought to at least be required to do what the state is, which is 50%. The other part that might be useful for people on this call is part of that bill says there has to be adequate public facilities for these things to occur. And I can send people the bill. And the example that it gave is if the local schools are already at capacity, that would be a reason to turn down the conversion. So again, there are just a lot of things people know. We're going to be hearing from Elrich soon, and there's so much detail left. It's almost hard to make a comment because a lot of it is not defined, and I think that's probably by design.
Yeah, I think so. Let me ask you all a question. The March meeting, we've invited Rich Madalino to talk about the budget, and I don't know that we've gotten an answer yet. Jerry Garson, did he answer you?
I spoke to his aide. It's on his calendar. It would reserve time, but at the moment, they don't want to make any heavy commitment in light of what's happening on the federal level and the state level.
Right.
In that, but they put it on his calendar as a reserve time. So I think it's going to be on. As soon as I hear anything, I'll let everyone know.
But this is one of the things we could do is to think about, is there someone we would want to come talk in March on this housing proposal and housing generally? You can send your suggestions. You don't have to answer right now, but if there's another March program, either as the regular meeting or a special meeting that you'd be interested in. On the growth and infrastructure policy, I do want to add in Glenn Orland, who spoke at our September special meeting on attainable housing, has done a lot of work and testified about the failures of the growth and infrastructure policy. I think that we should put that, Jackie, in the housing section of our website so people can have a look at it. I've been meaning to ask him whether he thinks when the council updated and adopted a new growth and infrastructure policy that they improved any of the failures or they made it worse. I know he briefly told me they made more exceptions to the requirement for adequate infrastructure. I think he was not happy with the result, but maybe he would update for us because I think it would be useful to know if we are more fluent as we each prepare our own testimony on what the failures of the growth and infrastructure policy. Joyce Squads was telling me recently that, I mean, all of us know that over the years, they always say apartment buildings don't bring children, so you don't have to worry about schools. Well, in Bethesda Elementary is popping at the seams, and the school superintendent in January announced any family that wanted to move their kid to Somerset or another school, I guess, was free to move their kid. So it's obviously their formula for determining the adequacy of schools has never been right, and but they'll tell you it's accurate and correct. Jeff, go ahead. Jeff Griffith.
You raised the question. I'm Jeff Griffith from Parkwood. You raised the question about the growth and infrastructure policies. We've been keeping track of this, and our understanding is, while they left the current situation for schools in place, they introduced a delay in the collection of taxes for transportation and other infrastructure components. And when the county executive said this is not good policy because you're delaying the collection of revenue that's going to be important for in the future for all this new housing, the response from the council was that, well, we formed a committee to take a look at this and come up with a solution to these ongoing problems. So the answer is entirely unsatisfactory.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a piece of work that we need to get done and would be worth doing, putting it down for all of our delegates to really understand it. I guess there are some like business opportunity zones that are, I'm not sure what the correct term for them is, but I know they're exempt from paying any impact taxes at all when they build development. I think it's the idea being they wanted to try to promote it. Downtown Silver Spring is one of them. And it's just not sort of like, how long is this supposed to go on? This redevelopment started 25 years ago. But Jeff, do you know what they're called?
No, I don't, but I don't know. But I do know also that they've, I believe, waived the collection of taxes for at least a significant period of time for some of the biomedical businesses and research institutes they're trying to attract, because they don't want the impact taxes to interfere with their coming here.
Mm-hmm.
Although a comment from either whether it was either their OMB or the Ledge Council research group was that it's not clear that impact taxes affect whether somebody's going to build or not. So there's not even clear indication of what the policy should be based on, as well as the fact that the policy is in flux and under study, which means that it may be quite a while before we know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Ken Marcuson, go ahead.
Yeah, I think your comment about switching the March meeting to a subject more related to either the Housing Now or the AHI proposal might be welcome and more timely than the budget, simply because the budget palooza, that what's going on in Washington, that's kind of in play. This is real. And I think you're quite right to suggest maybe a change in the March meeting. It's my own thought. Bouncing off yours.
Okay. Well, any delegates that want to weigh in on that, just send us an email, president@montgomerycivic.org or info@montgomerycivic.org. They both work. Or Joyce Squads. Joyce, what is your email that you want to use? There should be a first vice president email for you.
That is supposed to be forwarded to me. I can't send from it yet, but that's supposed to be forwarded.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just let us know what you think about programming. Anything
I
else?
would agree with Ken.
Well, let's see. We don't want to rescind our invitation
Right.
to Rich
Yeah.
Madalino, so we'll just see where he is.
Yes.
And
How's
if,
it going with you?
hey, Jerry, we can hear you. Oh, let me see. I muted him. Okay, I don't see any more hands up. This is old business, I guess. Is there any new business or anything else, other topic anyone wants to bring up? With that, we'll entertain.
Sure. The one thing you probably should advise people, I sent it today, you may not have seen it, is that the bill MC 2-25 that invalidates HOA covenants that ban ADUs advanced from the county delegation to the General Assembly on Friday and now has a number. It's HB 1234. But it's the first step. This is the same sponsor who tried to introduce the bill last year to do away with single family zoning. This is one step. This is another one of those one step bills where this is the first step to invalidate covenants that pertain to ADUs, which basically allow for a second house on a lot.
So this is a David Moon bill.
It's a David Moon bill, but it's at a separate level. It's at the state level. So it's one of those you shouldn't ignore because you can fight your way through the county and have it approved at the state level.
Right. I'm not arguing with you on the importance of it. I was just clarifying whose bill it was. I guess I should also update people. You may know that we took a position on a streaming bill. The Montgomery Planning asked the state legislators to put a bill through saying that they don't have to stream every meeting that they have. So, and it's intended to be, things like site visits and I don't know, things outside of their normal meeting place that they would want to do. And so Al Carr approached me because he pointed out to me that there is a statute on the books already that gives 19 state agencies the ability to not stream for things like a site visit or a meeting off site. You don't have cameras following you around. But it has some guardrails attached to it. You can't conduct business, take votes on official business. And it requires the agency in general to lock down their agendas 48 hours in advance. And so we took a position saying just put MNCPPC, Montgomery Planning and MNCPPC in that list of 19 other state agencies that have the flexibility that they're seeking, but also has some guardrails around that. And the author of the bill to do that is Julie Polakovich Carr. And she did offer an amendment in the Metro Washington Committee to tighten it up a little bit to make it more clear that these were site visits and, field trips basically, and not regular business meetings, but refused to put it in that list of the 19 other state agencies, that have some requirements regarding transparencies and the posting of agendas. So we will be asking Senator Kramer to either send it back to the House, and I haven't done this yet, but we'll be asking him to send it back to the House with instructions to do that, to put it in the existing statute that, gives the agency the flexibility they're looking for, Montgomery Planning, or kill the bill. And I have a commitment from Senator Waldstreicher to lend his support to an effort like that. So that is our next step. But anyone here who's in Julie Polakovich Carr's district, she led the fight against a People's Council. She's done this streaming bill. And Liz Joyce, isn't there a third thing she's done for planning? I'm trying to remember what it is.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Julie Polakovich Carr, the bills she's been doing for planning. There's the streaming bill. She opposed the People's Council.
Yes.
And actually would have gutted our county statute.
County code.
Yeah,
the county code about the People's Council, yes.
yeah, and isn't there a third thing she did for planning that was not so great?
I can't remember, but it seems distressing that she is the vanguard for so many of these regressive bills.
Right.
So she passed Boone's bill last year
Yeah.
out of committee. So that was the other thing. And this other bill for the ADUs, mysteriously, almost every other Montgomery County bill had a hearing that was streamed, that was recorded, that you could read what they discussed. This one specifically had nothing. There was nothing. And then Friday, it just got a bill number, went forward, and there is no tape to actually look at to see what the discussion was, if there even was a discussion.
Well, this kind of tactic surrounds us. And it's distressing.
Especially right now, we have so many residents of this county or federal employees who are
worried
and facing so much stress and strife, to have to also get up in the morning and try to figure out how to find out what's going on in our own county government and dodge the
neighborhood.
Dodge the bad stuff. Elliot, your hand's up. I see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, concerning MC 2-25, there was a hearing held. I testified there. There were a number of civic associations that testified against the bill. There were some groups that testified in favor of it. There seemed to be a consensus in the delegation that if that bill was going to move forward, they were going to amend it. But I see that what's posted on the legislature's website is the original bill with no amendment at all on it. So I am very surprised. It is worth following up. It is not a done deal that bill is going to pass. And that's something worth reaching out to members of the House and the Senate.
Again, that bill's not. So I was one of those that testified in December,
yeah,
and have been watching that bill just about every day to see when there was going to be the hearing by the Montgomery County delegation, and there never was one. And it's not cross-filed in the Senate, so there's only one place you have to follow that bill at the current time. I added it to my bill list today, so hopefully tomorrow I will get some sort of notice of when the first hearing is, but I could not get that from the General Assembly website today.
I'm just pausing here because I see Harriet Quinn is joining. Welcome, Harriet. Any other discussion and any other topic? Thanks for getting us up to date, Paul, on those state bills. I appreciate it. Anything else anyone want to talk about? So this was all old business. Is there any new business? Any announcements? Harriet, are you joining because you have something to tell us, or you just want to see what's going on?
No, I was just checking in. I was in another meeting, so just
okay.
Are you finished?
We're just finishing up. We did have a
Okay.
long conversation about the corridors proposal, and appreciate the work your boss has been doing to try to analyze it, since we've had a really difficult time getting the information that we all want. Okay, well, at this point, then we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
You guys
moved.
don't want to go? Thank you, Liz. Is there a second? Jeff?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate this conversation we had on housing very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.